And really, my focus is to, help businesses solve problems, use technology to be more strategic, and at the end of the day, make more money, improve profitability. And today, my key thing is to share and show you how you can improve customer service and get an edge on the competition by taking advantage of some new improvements in the much anticipated release of Windows 10. Now, I know that you're likely on this webinar for one of two reasons. Either one, you're planning to upgrade your systems when Windows 10 is released next week. That's next week, Wednesday on July 29th. And you want to know what to expect. Either that or you fall in the second camp. So number two is that you're just really interested about what all this hullabaloo is about. You want to get more information about Windows 10 so that you can make an informed decision about upgrading your computer systems. Now, either way, you're not alone, and I hope that my relatively short presentation can be of immense value and of guidance to you in your decision. I recommend that you take notes. Many of the points we will be talking about today may give you the answers that you are looking for. Now, let me start with a little story, and we're going to talk about the Ford Edsel. You ever heard of this car? Today it's a relatively rare car. Now, they were only made for 3 years, from 1958 through 1960. Now, as you may have guessed, this is a little bit of a different look for that time. And Ford claimed that the vehicle's radical styling was based on extensive market research, and they included these over-the-top innovations. You may wonder what these are. There were seatbelts. There were warning lights on the dashboard for engine service and problems. There were child-proof rear door locks. Kind of funny, huh? Now, the problem was that the public's reaction to the Edsel was really quite different. It became known as the ugliest car ever made, and in the view of the buying public, it was a dismal failure. Now, Ford lost tens of millions of dollars, and the Edsel was the butt of jokes for decades. Now, there's a few collectible models still on the road today, roughly around 10,000 of them. But at the time, most of them quickly ended up in vehicular graveyards. Now, the rest of the story, however, is quite different. The Ford Motor Company, as you know, didn't quit. As a matter of fact, out of the Edsel came incredible success. Some of the technology that they learned and research that followed helped them to produce the Comet and then the Mustang. And that Mustang was, of course, their all-time bestseller and the most profitable motor car Ford has to date. Now, from what they learned about the Mustang, they were able to then produce the Taurus. And the Taurus, for several years, was the number one selling car in America until around 1997 when the Camry kind of took that spot. But anyways, the lesson that we can all learn from this story is that when we make a mistake, and all of us periodically do fail, we should make it a point to ask the question, what can I learn to change this temporary failure into a resounding success? That's the beginning point of doing great things. And as a matter of fact, it's been said that the only way to the mountaintop is through the valleys. We never really reach our full potential until we've been tested and tried. Now, you're probably wondering, what does a dismal automotive failure story have to do with computers? Well, do any of you remember Windows Vista? It was the successor, so it was the next version of Windows right after Windows XP. And, the picture shown here really does a good job of describing how people felt about Windows Vista. So the operating system was really quite sound, and in fact, there's still Vista computers out there in use today. The public hated it, and it forced Microsoft to quickly roll out the next version of Windows, and that, of course, was Windows 7. And Windows 7 has become arguably one of the best operating systems ever made, period. And most businesses have held off on upgrading to Windows 8 and have stuck with Windows 7 for this very reason. It's a fantastic operating system, no doubt. And best of all, it's got a start button. That's that little button in the bottom left side of the screen that we've all grown accustomed to for the last 30 years. Well, the good news is that Microsoft has moved on from Windows 8, and come next week, we'll be releasing Windows 10. And their latest version of Windows makes some big promises about the future of personal computing, and I'm really excited to show you some of it today. You're probably interested as to why we're doing this webinar with the Better Business Bureau, and I really want to educate you, show you, and really fine-tune the key points of the tools that are available in Windows 10 that are going to make you competitive in the marketplace, keep that advantage that you have with your business, and let you move forward in what you're trying to do. Some of these key things that are really going to make a difference to your business in terms of Windows 10 are that you can finally replace those aging Windows 7 computers. Many businesses have been holding back on that upgrade because they don't like Windows 8. They don't like how the start button has disappeared. They don't like that it could be a staff issues. They don't like some of the interface issues. They feel that it's meant for a touch screen, not for a desktop work computer. Windows 10 finally brings all that back, merges the two operating systems that can bring you to be more productive with newer equipment and take advantage of new hardware technology that's been developed in the past few years, so you're not stuck with old Windows 7 computers. There's cross-data availability through devices. What that means is that the files that you create on a desktop work computer can then be synchronized to the salesperson's laptop. It can be synchronized to a tablet, to a Surface, to a phone, all cross-platform. So the idea is you're no longer tied to having people march into the office, sit down at their office computer, have access to their files, do their work, and then leave or not have it available when they go out into the field to make service calls or appointments with customers. There's Cortana, which is kind of cool. If you've used Siri with Apple, then you kind of get the idea as to how it works. Samuel Jackson has done a great job in his Apple commercial showing how it can make his life better. Well, obviously, Cortana is Microsoft's answer, and it seems to do a pretty good job. We're going to see how it works a little bit, when we do the demo of Windows 10. And what the big news is with Windows 10 is that Microsoft claims that it's going to be the last software upgrade. So they're changing the way that they do business that better matches the way that people work, which is they're going to release Windows kind of like as a service. So it's a Windows as a service software architecture. So as new things come out, you don't have to upgrade your computers, you don't have to upgrade your Windows, you don't have to upgrade all this stuff. The updates and interface changes and upgrades are slowly streamed out to computers in real time as they happen. And that's pretty good from an employer standpoint because there's no staff retraining, there's no major upgrades that need to happen, there's no third-party applications which won't work with an older version of Windows but will work with a newer one or vice versa. So that upgrade process kind of has been reduced, or the pain of it has been reduced. So from an employer standpoint, jumping on Windows 10 and sticking with that for the next who knows how many years is going to make a lot of sense. I'm not sure if you've tuned into any of our previous webinars, but I want to kind of do a call back to the last one where we're talking about telephone service. And that's a picture of me and Kevin O'Leary. And in that last webinar, we went over a very interesting find that Kevin O'Leary shared with the audience, and that was specifically in regards to customer service and profitability. And the finding in the investment community now, and this is a new find, is that improving customer service can improve revenues. And I'll give you like a little brief synopsis of what we talked about. But in the investment community, they find that they're looking for specifically professional services companies that are in the Q4 of their customer service ranks. So Q4 means the very bottom in terms of customer service ratings. Then they take those companies, they acquire them, and then they focus only on customer service, not on the product, not on the service itself, but the customer service for the next 12 months. And they bring that customer service and client satisfaction rating up to Q1, which is top 25% in their industry. And then they raise the rates by 15%. So they improve customer service for 12 months, raise rates by 15%, and they get no customer attrition, meaning no customers leave the company. Pretty cool, huh? So from an investment standpoint, investors are looking specifically for these kind of companies because they can improve them and get a 15% return. And the next experiment, of course, is going to be, can they make it a 20% return, a 30% return? There's no way to know. It's really new. Tying this back to Windows 10, of course, is that it can do the same thing for your business. If you can improve customer service using some of the features that I'm going to show you with Windows 10, you can take advantage of this new market trend. Let me start with 3 quick questions. Think about the technology that you're using today in your business. If you were to improve any of it, would it create a better experience for your employees and customers? How about your files, your software, your servers? Do they have any limitations that slow down the business? For example, we talked about cross-platform availability. If your Word and Excel files were available on a device other than the desktop or just the server, would that make a difference? Would that help speed it up? And, of course, have you evaluated the cost of not making these changes? Have you looked at what it's costing you to not upgrade and to stay with a slow and traditional computer network? Now, if you answered no to any of these questions, you'll be really glad that you tuned in today, because we're going to we're really going to go through all this and more, and specifically, we're going to look at what Windows 10 is, and if upgrading is the right choice for you. We're going to look at Windows 10 apps. We're going to see the mobility and security features of Windows 10. We're going to take a sneak peek at Windows 10, and I know I'm going a little bit fast here, so I want to make sure we put that in. And I wanted to go through some of the critical cost-saving ways to upgrade to Windows 10 without you having to spend too much, and how to do that. And of course, at the end, if we have a few minutes, I'm going to go through some of the questions that have built up in the queue, and I'll answer them for you at the end. So I want to encourage you to hang on until the end of this webinar. You're going to get a Windows 10 keyboard cheat sheet plus an upgrade checklist. It's going to be incredibly valuable to you, especially if you use Windows 10 in the workplace, because you're going to want something really quick you can stick on the wall that's going to give you all those keyboard shortcuts and make you more productive. And the upgrade checklist is going to be super important, because you're going to want to look through that, and of course we'll go through that at the end of the presentation. You're going to want to look through that before you make the upgrade, so you can make an informed decision and not shoot yourself in the foot before you jump into the Windows 10 space. Now, of course, before we get rolling, I know that there are some of you here today that maybe I haven't met or have just tuned in a little bit late. So for these folks, let me briefly introduce myself. And, my name is, of course, Attila Suresh. I provide really easy to use computer and phone solutions that solve problems for small to medium-sized businesses on Oahu. I've worked with Hawaii businesses since 2006. Originally started here in Oahu with Best Buy's Geek Squad business technology division, and you may have seen me on the news or on the TV or on the internet. I'm kind of out there, and really the reason that I get out of bed, the reason that I get excited, is I look to solve problems with small to medium-sized businesses, look for technology solutions that are going to help them get to where they want to go, accomplish their dreams, and it gives me an incredible satisfaction, and I'm very blessed to have the opportunity to help these small businesses with the skills that we have here at SOS. Now, one of the things that I want to start with is looking at being behind the technological curve. George Bernard Shaw, he was the co-founder of the London School of Economics, and he said that progress is impossible without change, and those who cannot change their minds cannot change anything. So let's look at Windows 10 and see the changes that you've already gone through. It started back in 1985 with Windows 1.0, 3.1, 95, XP, Vista, so on and so on. We've had a legacy since 1985 all the way through to 2015 of a number of different operating systems. Things have been changing, and in each different version of Windows, there's a lot of things that show up, and I'll give you some examples of that, so this way you're not shocked at the new things that are going to come in Windows 10. Windows XP to Windows Vista went through a number of security updates. That's what really upset a lot of people. They didn't like to have to enter their password just to install a piece of software, but now we take this kind of stuff for granted. There's a lot of third-party app integration into the operating system, and this includes file compression, file system encryption. These are all software applications that kind of were out there with third-party vendors that Microsoft started to integrate into the operating system more and more. Of course, they got a bad rap for doing this, but at the end of the day, it provided a better customer experience. There was more integration into the operating system so that you didn't have to go to third-party vendors just to do what you need to do. There's also interface changes, and interface changes are designed to make you more productive. Part of Windows 8, of course, was the notorious interface change. They removed the start button. They created the charm bar, and this was all in the anticipation that everyone would be using touchscreen, everything, in computers from now on out. And as they found, there was kind of this initial push to touchscreen, and now it's kind of scaling back. And this is where Windows 10 makes a lot more sense in the business environment because we don't have a bunch of touchscreens in a workplace. Not everyone is using tablets, and so you need to have some sort of middle ground. Windows 10 is that. In every new version of Windows, there's typically new hardware that also comes out. So video card manufacturers make new video cards. You may have heard of names like NVIDIA or ATI. Those are manufacturers that focus specifically on making really powerful video and these video cards and applications. So the operating systems have to be able to support the hardware manufacturers as they bring out new stuff. And of course, that support comes at the base level, which is the operating system, i.e. Windows. And what we usually also see is, we just see productivity enhancements in general. You see touch panels, you see new interface changes. Microsoft is working hard to try to make you more productive, period. So we often take these improvements for granted, and over time, the reason I'm trying to show you this list of I showed you on the previous slide, this list of operating systems, and to see how much has really changed in all this time. They're really trying to help you. So let's not take these improvements for granted. We've gone through this before, and Windows 10 has got a bunch of stuff that's really going to help you. So let's look at what some of these things are. There's plenty of new user interface updates to the system. What that means is that things look different. They kind of rearrange things like they always do with the new version of Windows. But who cares, right? All we want to know is what productivity improving features are there in Windows 10 that's going to make a difference in your business. Multiple virtual desktops, huge. Mac users have had this for years. Linux users have had this for years as well. But now it comes to the Microsoft world. You guys are really going to be able to take advantage of it. I hope to show you that in a few minutes. Microsoft Edge browser. There's this thing called Microsoft Internet Explorer. You've probably used it for years. Now, Microsoft has found that, unfortunately, it doesn't work as well as it used to. And they've done away with it. So the new version is called Microsoft Edge. It uses a different set of code. It uses a different way of operating. It looks similar to what you're used to seeing. And it's a pretty cool web browser. I'll show you some neat features that you can actually use with it here in just a few minutes. And desktop synchronization, that's a big deal. There have been a lot of third-party apps that have been able to do that. And the desktop synchronization built in Windows allows you to, of course, use the Microsoft network, the Microsoft Cloud, to be able to have your files always available on all devices and have all your preferences, so your wallpaper, your favorites, your saved passwords, everything all synchronized. Very handy. And, of course, the Start button is now returned. And I want to emphasize that, a lot of these Windows 7 computers that have been out for 6-7 years now, they're fantastic machines. They were great 6-7 years ago, but now they're starting to age, and it's just, they're reaching the end of their lifespan. So we're seeing a lot of Windows 7 computers come into the shop because they're starting to now fail. And, I'd love to tell people, go out and buy a new computer, but, they can't because Windows 8 has an interface that they're not familiar with, they don't like, doesn't work in the business. Now we can say, okay, here you go. Here's Windows 10. It's got the Start menu button back. It's got everything working again. Go for it, right? So now Windows 10 is set to be a cross-platform operating system. So it's not just going to go on desktops, but it's going to go on laptops and tablets. It's going to go on the Surface, and it's going to also go on the HoloLens. Now, the HoloLens, I could do a whole presentation about it. I love it. It's very interesting. It's fascinating. What it is essentially, you see that guy there on the left? He has a kind of like these goggles that he puts over his eyes, and it has a clear display. But over that clear display, it projects three-dimensional things in your physical space. So as you can see, this person here is manipulating a model that he created on his coffee table of a tall tower. And HoloLens is set to really go into the education space. They predict that you'll be able to create these three-dimensional things, and this three-dimensional manufacturing is going to take place in the virtual world, and then it's going to come to the real world with the introduction of 3D printers and all these other new technologies. And so the HoloLens by itself is going to run Windows 10. So what you're looking at there is a whole computer mounted to the guy's head. And it's running Windows 10. It only needs Wi-Fi. And you can walk around and interact with your world. And, of course, trying to walk the streets while paying attention to non-real 3D things flying at you is probably not the safest thing to do. But it is available. And, they spent over 10 years in making this. Very cool stuff. Slated to go on sale. It's kind of vague. They haven't released a date yet, but they're predicting around 2016. Of course, it's going to be expensive, but it's probably going to be a real game changer for Microsoft. So, the questions that I'm asked frequently are, should you upgrade to Windows 10? And in my professional opinion, I say yes, but not right away. And here's why. Your free upgrade for Windows 7 and Windows 8, that's good for 1 year. So what that means is if you have a Windows 7 and Windows 8 computer, you can upgrade that to Windows 10 for 1 year for free. And in my experience, whenever there's an upgrade, there is wrinkles in the software. There's things that go wrong. And that usually includes hardware compatibility issues. Notoriously, it seems to be printers and third-party manufacturers. So, a customer will go out, they'll get Windows 10, and then they'll go out, they'll get the latest scanner, or they'll renew their lease from Xerox, and the Xerox will show up, and the Xerox won't work with Windows X, right? So the newer version of Windows. So this hardware compatibility is kind of one of those issues, and this is why I recommend that you check with your line of business apps, you check with your hardware vendors for compatibility concerns. This also holds true for cloud-based browser apps. So you don't want to upgrade to Windows 10 and then find out that the Microsoft Edge browser doesn't work with QuickBooks Online, and then we have a problem, right? So you want to check with your vendors, check with anyone that's not your computer itself. So that includes obviously equipment vendors, third-party software vendors, and everything even from like your mail machine. If you need to recharge a mail machine, will it work with Windows 10? Good questions. I also see that there's hardware performance issues. So, for example, there's Windows 8 and then there's Windows 8.1. And everyone knows Windows 8.1 had the start menu back in some kind of rudimentary fashion where it showed up, and then when you clicked on the start menu, a bunch of tiles popped up on your screen. Wasn't really all that helpful. But Windows 8.1 was a major stability upgrade, a major performance upgrade. So it made the computers a lot faster, it made them a lot more stable, and it was a huge upgrade, to be fair. But I'm anticipating something's going to happen like this with Windows 10 as well. The initial release may be a little bit slow, but a little bit buggy. Even the pre-release version that I'm going to show you in a minute, it's not exactly all that fast. I think it's because they're still working on performance optimizations. Even in the past few weeks, I've noticed a lot of changes rolling out, a lot of new updates with the Windows 10. So I anticipate that's going to keep on coming. And so you should expect interruptions in your workflow, expect interruptions in things if you upgrade right away. So, of course, the following question is, do you recommend that I upgrade, and when? And so I'm going to tell you to go 30 days after you've evaluated your computer systems. Remember how I mentioned your hardware? Remember your software vendors? They all need to be, you've got to check with them to make sure the Windows 10 is compatible. And you got to make sure that everything's going to work correctly. You don't want to do this upgrade like I mentioned and then not be able to invoice your clients. Big problem. In terms of apps that are, we'll talk a little bit about apps here in a minute, but in terms of mobility and security, the App Store is that you're familiar probably with Apple products. Microsoft has their own vision. They call it the Windows Store. There's some other security things that are built into Windows 10, specifically automatic data encryption. That started with Windows 8, but of course a lot of you have not had Windows 8 on your work computers. There's data encryption is pretty important if you're a dentist. It's important if you're a chiropractor, and it's important if you're in the medical practice because you have something called HIPAA, which is a protocol that you have to follow in order to protect patient security. And the file system encryption puts one check in the box based on the things that you need to follow, those rules that you need to follow. So then, of course, we talked about cross-platform sync of files, and you just got to make sure that you're using Microsoft products on your mobile devices, and you'll have everything that you have on your desktop computer available on all of your things. Now, let's jump into a quick sneak peek of Windows 10. So I'm going to jump over into our unit here. Perfect. All right. So let's kind of go full screen. Now this is Windows 10, and we're going to go through just a few things with the Windows 10 operating system. The first thing I'm going to show you is kind of the overall look. It's funny because if you look at these icons, if any of you have been in computers for a while, you're going to think that you just logged into a 1995 computer. There's a lot of this kind of square, flat look. Now the advantage, of course, with Windows 10 is that it's going to be streaming new updates and such to the systems as they come on out. So this is the initial look of Windows 10. 5 years from now, it can look completely different, but it can still be called Windows 10. Pretty cool. So as you can see, we have this nice flat look, but it's fairly rudimentary, and it's stuff you're used to seeing. You're used to seeing documents, you're used to seeing your desktop, you're used to seeing your pictures. All this stuff is the same. Now, in the bottom left-hand corner here, we have this icon, right? It's the Start button. Now, the Start button in Windows 7 brings up a little menu. The Start button in Windows 8 brings up this full-page tile view, which drove people crazy. And so let's see what it does in Windows 10. If you press the Start button, it's going to bring up, kind of a mix of both, right? So you have these, you have all your apps listed here, the way you're used to seeing. But also you have this tile view, so you can kind of see. You can put things onto your tile view to be a little bit more productive. You can kind of you can customize this, of course, based on your preferences and what you need to do in your workplace. But you can jump to your calendar, you can jump to your email, and if you want to search for something, you can still do that, using the way that you're probably used to doing already. Now, previously, when you press the Start menu on older versions of Windows, such as Vista and Windows 7, you have this little search box that would pop up kind of right here above the Start menu. That in Windows 10 has been moved down to the taskbar, and it uses something called Cortana. Now, Cortana looks kind of like this. If we kind of click on this Ask Me Anything, you'll see it's kind of like a pulsating donut. That simply is going to look at your habits, and it's going to say, well, based on what you like to do, here are some recommendations for you. And, it tries to help you out. And Cortana, of course, is very new. They are pre-releasing a version for Android for developers that just came out, I think, last week. So you're going to see Cortana not just on Microsoft products, but on other ones as well. And this is where you're going to be able to search for things and to, navigate your system. So if we want to bring up, say, calculator, we'll type that in. I can bring up a calculator. There it is. And eventually it pops up. Here we go. And, of course, Cortana, you can do all the fun stuff that you're used to doing with Siri. We can ask Cortana a very simple question: what is the meaning of life? And it's going to think. And, of course, if you're a fan of A Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, that answer is 42. But let's kind of go back to the desktop, which is, all these things are fun little toys, but really what's going to make the most amount of difference to you in the workplace. Now, let's start with the Edge browser, because that's probably a good place where you're going to get some differences in your productivity. Now, I brought up our website here on the Edge browser, soshawaii.com, and a lot of times you're surfing the web and you come across some really important piece of information, such as, who's that guy, right? I want to be able to remember this. So in the Edge browser, this is the unique portion. There's this little icon there up on top which says make a web note. Let's see what that does. So if we click on that, it gives you a series of tools. You have a pen, you have a highlighter, and you have this little type note. So you can type notes on the web pages. The idea is that as you're going online, seeking information, you want to be able to interact with it. And, just personally, kind of as a little bit of a side note,
I'm actually a very analog kind of guy. If anyone has ever seen any of the books that I read, I always like to write all over them. I write over everything. Someone hands me a proposal, I write all over it. I like to interact with paper. This bridges that gap, and that the web has got all this great content out there, but you can't really interact with it without a mouse and a keyboard, and you're typing in a little box, right? Why not be able to write on it? So, you can take this website and, put a little circle around this guy, and put a little happy face, we really like that. And, we'll say, why choose SOS? Oh, look at this, expert IT support. Okay, so let's take that. We're going to highlight this part of the web. That's very cool. And, I'd really like to add a note. Let's put a little note over here. We should really call this guy. He seems to know what he's talking about. Great. So you found our website on the internet. You have some good pointers. You've highlighted some text, perhaps that's important. And now you'd sure like to send this to management so that they can call this company and have them come on out. So the idea is you have this little share button now. And, obviously you can share it in OneNote, but let's just share it through email. We're going to send an email message. And we're going to send this to, who should we send this to? Let's send this to Tim Caminos. Tim Caminos at hawaii.pbb.org. Right, perfect. So we're going to send Tim this fantastic website that has writing all over it that says, this is a great company that we should use for IT services. Perfect. We'll send that off. So the idea is you get this interactive experience, and if you've seen the new Microsoft 10 ads, they have a bunch of kids running around, and they're saying these kids are going to grow up interacting with the web, writing on websites. They're going to use the internet with Cortana, and they're going to talk to computers. I've just shown you the two things that they're going to be doing: writing on websites and using the voice integration to be able to search for data and have things recommended to them. And of course, it's going to continue. That's going to continue to go on as long as Windows 10 is around. I know we're running a little bit shorter on time. We're running a little bit behind, so I'm going to kind of jump forward a little bit. So I've shown you Cortana, and of course I brought up this little notepad. And then I'm going to bring up one more thing for you. Let's look at Solitaire. And so Solitaire is, as you know, the number one time waster in the workplace. But I'm going to bring up Solitaire, and we'll take a look to see how it's a little bit different and what you can do with it. So my mom's favorite version of Solitaire is Spider Solitaire, so I'm definitely going to bring that up. And this probably looks at like a typical computer environment, right? You have 2 or 3 things open, and it's all kind of cluttered on your desktop. If you want to bring it up, you got to go down to the taskbar and then bring this up and kind of go back and forth. This is the same way you've been doing it for probably, I don't know how many years. Now we have these virtual desktops, and this is this new icon here on the left. You probably wondered what it was during the demo. This shows everything that's on this current desktop. Now, desktops are designed for functionality, right? So you would have a desktop for each different thing. So let's pretend that you're at the workplace and you want to have one desktop that you're actually doing work on, so i.e. a website and your calculator, but you'd really like to put all your kind of your games and whatever else you're doing on a second desktop. You can right-click on an item here. You can go to Move To, and put it on Desktop 2. And so now you can switch back and forth between your desktops and do different things. And you can create as many desktops as you like. So you can be much more productive in terms of the number of desktops you have open, in terms of the applications that are running on each desktop. This is meant to make you more productive. Categorize the things that you are doing on different desktops. So you can have your email perhaps on one, and then maybe on a different one you can put different things. Fantastic productivity tool. I've been pushing people to get multiple monitors for years because they can take advantage of some of these features. Now you can do this with one desktop or a laptop screen. So you can have multiple desktops on your single laptop. It's going to make you more productive. It's going to allow you to do more stuff more quickly. and it's all free and built into Windows. Bang. This is the major reason I would recommend to go with Windows 10, is for these multiple desktops. If you go for no other purpose, you don't need Solitaire, but the Edge browser, being able to write on the internet, having the multiple browsers, and Cortana, which is kind of cool. It may help you out a little bit. Big difference. Start menu is back, so you can actually get back to what you need to be doing, looking at all your typical apps the way you're used to seeing them, having it a little bit better organized. It's going to make a huge difference for you. Now, this is going to conclude the Windows 10 demo, but next week it comes on out. If you're a little bit curious, you can always do the live upgrade. It's going to come out next Wednesday. Put it on 1 or 2 computers just to see how it works. You never know. And I'm going to switch over here back to our presentation. So you're probably interested in how to do this upgrade without really breaking the bank or breaking your computer. And to that effect, I've put together a 7-step upgrade checklist. And this is something that you can download in just a minute here. I'm going to give you the link. But that 7-step upgrade checklist starts with number 1. Number 1 is you want to take a data inventory. So during an upgrade, data is going to move around. It's going to get lost. You want to know where your data is stored, especially for programs that don't save their data to user profiles. So this is like your My Documents folder. QuickBooks is notorious for this. They like to hide the company data file deep in the operating system. You want to know where that stuff is. If you need your installation media, probably a good idea to round that up at this point also. If you've done a digital download, probably nice to know where that is. Sometimes people actually like to burn that to physical media beforehand, just to be safe. But you want to know where everything is. Take a quick list, take a quick inventory. It's going to make a huge difference in your business. You don't want to be down for any period of time due to an upgrade. You're probably going to want to also take a physical copy, so print out if you have any critical, system-related stuff, if you have any static IP addresses. You want to make sure that if there's any, makes, models, licensing stuff, you should have this anyway for depreciation purposes. You should have a complete equipment inventory. But if you don't have that, this is a good time to do it. Just take an inventory. Now, a lot of times, I get the question, should we upgrade because my computer is slow? Well, your computer is probably slow because you have some sort of nonsense that's running in the background, adware, spyware, viruses, whatever. Before you do the upgrade, just put some antivirus on there and do a scan, clean it out, because you're just going to carry whatever infections you have from the old to the new. So clean it up. Of course, that brings us to step number 4. Just clean up your data. If you have anything that you don't really need, it's probably a good idea to go through that. Just clean out your files. You can use a program such as CCleaner. That's letter C, cleaner.com, or just Google CCleaner. It's made by Piriform. Does a great job kind of cleaning out your temporary files, all your trash. You just don't want to have a lot of that clutter moving from the old to the new. Another fun thing that we come across quite a bit, a client will bring us a system or bring us a laptop and say, our laptop's really slow. I'm not really sure why. I don't really seem to have anything that's on here, any sort of viruses or Trojans or any of that kind of stuff. Why is it so slow? And a lot of that has to do with the hard disk. So the hard disk is the physical drive inside of your system that stores Windows, stores your files, stores everything. Now, if that is having problems, your system is going to be really slow, and eventually it reaches a point where your system crashes. So a slow system may be a telltale sign of the hard disk going bad. Not hard to do. To check to make sure it's working, go to your computer, select the drive, right-click on it, go to Properties, go to Tools, and then run a drive check on it. It's a good checklist tool. So you can run through your hard disk check, make sure that it is working before you do the upgrade, because if you do the upgrade, you're just wasting a bunch of time because you're going to have to replace that piece of equipment in your desktop or laptop anyway. Defragmentation, probably a good idea too. If you have a heavily defragmented drive, it can slow down the installation process just a little bit. Let's make sure it's defragmented. And with newer versions of Windows, it's supposed to run in the background when you're not doing stuff anyway to kind of keep this real-time defragmentation. I'm just going to do a blanket statement. Just run a defrag. It doesn't take that long. And of course, nothing is complete without a good backup. So let's pretend you go through this upgrade process, but then say your laptop runs out of juice or your desktop computer loses power. It's not clear what's going to happen to your computer when you try to turn it back on again. It may not turn on. or it'll turn on, but then I'll have to start all over, and something could get screwed up. Just make a backup, just to be safe. You should have a good backup anyway. So these are my 7 steps. This is how it's cheap, it's simple, just requires a little bit of planning, a little bit of thinking. Piece of paper and a pen will take care of a lot of this stuff. External flash drive for $5 from Costco will take care of the rest. Just have a good backup, take good inventory, clean up your system a little bit. Then when the upgrade takes place, you're okay. And of course, on top of this, you also want to check with your third-party vendors. Make sure that everything is kosher when you actually make the update and that everything continues to work. And, to do a little shout-out to my alma mater, John Wooden, known as one of the best coaches of all time, coach for UCLA. If you don't have the time to do it right, when will you have the time to do it over? He said. So I recommend doing a 3-step Windows 10 review. This is something we do with clients. You can do it internally, or we can come in and do it with you. Step 1, think about where you are. What are your systems today? Should you upgrade? What's keeping you up at night? Do you have any security issues existing in your organization? Are you overpaying for things? Do you have any productivity drains? Where are your problems? And then outline where you'd like to be. So really specific business objectives. Specific business objectives. See if Windows 10 will help get you there. Will help you along that path. If it doesn't, don't bother, right? So start with where you are, go where you want to be, and then create a roadmap. How are you going to get there? Certain parts of Windows 10 are going to be really valuable to growing the business. And some things that are going to cost you if you don't do the upgrade. Because I can tell you this, eventually the world is going to go with Windows 10. So are you going to wait until the productivity drains and you've fallen behind on the competition because they're able to work faster, smarter, whatever, because they have Windows 10 installed correctly and they've been trained and they've been using it for some time? Are you going to wait for all that to happen, or are you going to be proactive about it? It's up to you. Now, if we come in and we do this for you, we create an action plan to implement Windows 10 where it's appropriate based on your goals, your budget, etc. And the whole point behind all this is to keep you current, competitive, and relevant. So we get the panic calls whenever a business falls really far behind. It's hurting the business. Then we have to run in and rush, and it's a big rush. So why not be proactive about it? This is what we do. Now, I would love to offer this to everyone here today, but the reality is I only have so many hours today, so I can only extend this to 10 people. So I put 5 here on the screen. I decided to do 10 because I want to help you guys out, and I know this is going to be a major pain point for a lot of companies. So I'm going to stretch myself a little bit thin. I'm going to give you 10 slots. And there's no obligation to buy or do anything. I really just want to help you, and it's by application only. So I want to make sure that I can actually help you before we do the consult. There's some information I'm just going to need about you and your organization before we schedule the first meeting. It helps me to prepare, and it helps to make the meeting as productive as possible. So I only need that. So what to do now is if you are interested in having us help you, we can do this Windows 10 keyboard cheat sheet and 7-step upgrade list. Those are the 7 steps I went through before, as well as a few cheat sheets you can print out, put on your wall today that will help you use Windows 10 more effectively. And we're only going to take the first 10, as I mentioned, but that's the website there. You go to www.sosy.com/BBB10, and first 10, so I'm going to scratch that off, first 10. If I had a Windows 10, I would scratch that off right there for you. That kind of concludes our presentation. And let's see, now we're going to open this up to Q&A. And I know we did have a couple of questions come in. Let's see what came in. So let's see. So one of the questions that came in is, will we be able to purchase a new computer pre-install with Windows 10 on July 29th? And the answer to that is yes. So the computers that are shipping today still have Windows 8. You can upgrade them for free. So you can still go and buy a computer today and get Windows 10 when it's released. If you're running Windows 7 or Windows 8 already, you'll probably notice that there's a little icon in the bottom right-hand corner, and that little icon is an upgrade notification. They're going to say, you can do Windows 10, and just click here. You got 1 year to upgrade. It's free, so go ahead and do that. And so you can still
You can still get Windows 10 on a computer that you purchased today. And of course, after July 29th, everything's going to be shipping with Windows 10 already. Let's see. I have a second question here from Bob. It says, I have used Start is Back to have Windows 8.1 look and act like Windows 7. Will I still be able to use the new buttons, the new Windows 10 to look as old as I am? And will it boot to desktop? Well, it's a valid question. We actually ran across this quite a bit with Windows 8.1. We used actually Classic Shell. It was the same thing. It made it look like a regular start button. My answer to you is probably not. One of the things I found with Classic Shell is it didn't work from 8 to 8.1. And with Windows 10, they want you to use their own start menu. And, you may not need a third-party application to do this kind of stuff. One of the other things that I found, which was kind of troublesome with these third-party applications, is that they came installed with adware. So Classic Shell was one of those examples. It would install and would work well, but if you did not install it correctly, or if you just hit next, you would end up infecting your computer with something, and ads would be popping up. So I don't like using third-party applications unless it's just absolutely unavoidable. With Windows 8, because they removed the start button, it was unavoidable. I mean, we had, decades of start menus, and why would they remove it? Not everyone's going to get the tablet. I didn't really get it, but it is what it is. There was a workaround. So I'm going to recommend that you do not use a third-party app for Windows 10. And if there's some compelling advantage to using the application, just make sure that you check with the vendor. Shoot them an email, call them up, whatever. Especially if it's a paid application, you should be able to call them and ask, what's the compatibility with Windows 10? What are the advantages of using your software versus the parts of the Windows 10 that already come with the operating system? So, Bob, I hope that answers your question. Is Windows 10 an in-place upgrade or a new install? The answer to that was from Talk. Talk says, it is an in-place upgrade. What that means is that it takes the existing operating system and ups it to Windows 10. Of course, you can get a standalone install and install it from a fresh computer. If you're a gamer or a custom builder or an enthusiast, you can still take a piece of hardware and purchase Windows 10 and put on it. The price point on that, actually Microsoft's making it a lot cheaper than previous versions. I think it's around $125 for a standalone copy. It's very, very inexpensive, and I believe the professional is going to only be around $199. So it's very affordable. And so if you want to do a standalone, you can. Or if you want to do just a straight online upgrade, you can do that also as well. Talk also asks, what are your thoughts on Windows 10 going to a subscription model based on some articles? So I guess what Talk is trying to ask here is, how do I feel about Windows 10 going to a subscription model? And, Talk, I got to be honest, the world is going to a subscription model. Better Business Bureau, subscription model. Office 365, subscription model. And in the end, the subscription model that is best for the customer. And oftentimes they don't see it that way. You pay your car insurance every month in the prediction that you're not going to get inside of an accident, and it takes care of you. And you can keep on driving your car as long as it goes, and you know that it's covered. So the subscription model is the same way, especially when it comes to Windows. The internet, unfortunately, gets more and more complex every year. As you can tell with some of our previous webinars, I've talked about data security. Things have been lost and stolen. Well, guess what? A lot of that has to do with Windows XP. A lot of that has to do with all these infections and spyware and viruses and all the nonsense that's out there. And these guys who are taking your money are getting more and more sophisticated. So why not subscribe to a subscription model where they're going to make sure that your systems are at least secure to a point? You're going to get all the latest updates, all the interface changes. You're not going to wonder, wow, what's this new version of Windows? I really would like to get trained on it. I come across even technicians out in the field who are uncomfortable with Windows 8. Well, I got to tell you guys, Windows 8 has been out for a long time. If you're a technician and you're in the IT field and you're not familiar with Windows 8 by now, you're behind the curve. So Windows 10 doesn't have that problem. Someone who's qualified in using Windows 10, it's as the updates change, as the operating system changes, they're now exposed to that, right? They continue to get trained and get new information about Windows. So I really encourage the subscription model. I think it's better for everyone. And, there's some arguments in terms of cost. Does it cost more to go on a subscription model versus, upgrading your system every few years or buying a new operating system and blah, blah, blah. And usually it ends up being a wash. Usually ends up being about the same. So in terms of cost, it's usually about the same. In terms of experience, it's better for the customer. And in terms of talk what you're thinking about in terms of live upgrading your system and sticking with the subscription, it's a little bit unclear in terms of how Microsoft's going to continue to charge this upgrade service. At this time, they're saying that it's a lifetime upgrade, and it's more likely that piece of equipment that you're running there is not going to work in 5 or 6 years. You're going to end up buying a new one anyway. So the subscription model works for that. So hopefully that helps answer your question. And with that, Roland, you're looking at me saying it's 10 o'clock, and I do see that it is time. So I'm going to hand this back over to Roland. Thank you so much, you guys, for your time, and I hope I've given you some great ideas, introduced you to some fantastic new features of Windows 10, and can keep you competitive and productive and make more money with your business. I appreciate it. My name is Attila with SOS Tech Solutions. Take it away, Roland.
Thank you, Attila, for your time and for sharing very important information. Mahalo to all of you who participated. We're glad you joined us today. Our contact information is on your screen. Feel free to get in touch with us at any time, and any feedback are appreciated. Thank you again, and aloha.